Peter MacKay has come out on social media stating that if he were prime minister, there would be no carbon tax. And for those of you who have been with me for a while, you know that I'm disgusted by the carbon tax. I think first of all, I think it doesn't make any sense. I mean, in a globalized world with all these free trade deals popping up everywhere, where companies can move to countries like China on a dime, or America, or Venezuela, or any of these countries, you'll know that a carbon tax is useless, because if a company is slapped with a carbon tax, and especially when we have such weak leaders who won't take the necessary steps to stop companies from going overseas, like they did, like GM or the oil sector in the West, they can decide, well, I'm going to move to China or America or other places with no carbon tax and save money. Now, if we had a government which could stop companies where, you can impose tariffs on businesses like that, or nationalize businesses that tried to run away and fire all the executives, then okay, maybe a carbon tax would make sense. But we don't have any leaders like that, especially in Canada at least. And I don't see any leaders like that on the horizon. So a carbon tax doesn't make sense. I've always stated we need to plant more trees. Every municipality needs to plant one tree a month, I would say. And things like, replacing concrete with hempcrete, switching to electric cars, making it easier for people to get electric cars and more economically affordable to get electric cars, things like that. So Peter MacKay says he's going to get rid of the carbon tax. Really, he has no choice, because if he were to come out saying otherwise, he would be thrown out of he would have no choice but to withdraw his contest to be the leader. The conservatives are not going to tolerate anybody who wants a carbon tax. Michael Chong was taught that lesson. Patrick Brown was taught that lesson. And Caroline Mulrooney was taught that lesson. She quickly ran away from that. We're just not going to accept something so stupid and foolish. My question, though, is, can we trust Peter MacKay? Now, conservatives, especially in Ontario, have been burnt by people, i.e. Patrick Brown, who ran in leadership elections saying they would never impose a carbon tax and they would stop, the radical sex education, which was created by a pedophile in Ontario. And then they become leader, and then they immediately, it's almost like on a dime, they switch positions. It's like they have resorted to blatantly and unashamedly lying to us. Well, I shouldn't say us, because I'm an independent, but lying to conservatives, saying that they won't do this, and then they become conservative leader, and they just do it anyway. It's like they have no shame, and they think that, Canadians are so dumb and stupid, which in some cases they might be. They elected Justin the Tackhead McDaddy Trudeau twice, even though I should not be too harsh because he didn't win the popular vote. That will just vote for them anyway. Look what happened to Patrick. But the reason why I don't trust anything that Peter MacKay says is because of his record of doing exactly that. Now, for those of you who don't know, in 2003, I believe it was 2003, was it? Let me look. Peter MacKay ran to be the progressive conservative leader. Let me just look up something here. 2003 PC Leadership Convention. Was it 2003? Yeah, it was. It was 2003. And Peter MacKay, at the time, the right was divided. This is a little bit of Canadian political history here. The right was divided between the more centrist, but still center-right, progressive conservative party, and the more conservative alliance, which at the time was run by Stephen Harper. And in 2003, there was a leadership election. Peter MacKay won it. He was the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party. And Peter MacKay ran pretty much on the issue that he would not unite with the Canadian Alliance. He wouldn't do it. He made deals with people like David Orchard, who also was running at the time, who is now a liberal. And I'm not saying that I'm against it. I say I support the merger. I supported it. I supported it 100%. The right, the center right was losing left, right, and center to Chrétien and Harper. Ontario, almost all the constituencies in Ontario were taken by the Liberals because the Conservatives were stupid enough to be so divided like that. I mean, Conservatives in this country have such a bad habit of dividing. They're divided right now, and they're going to lose again if they don't unite. They're going to lose. You're never going to win if you're... The only time the Conservatives have ever won in Canada is when they're united. Mulroney, the Conservatives were united. Harper, the Conservatives were united. Diefenbaker, they were somewhat divided, even though that was pretty much an exception. Diefenbaker and the Social Credits, they weren't united, but that's the exception, not the rule. Conservatives, they pretty much have themselves to blame for losing all these elections because they're so dumb that they keep dividing like that. But Peter MacKay said he wouldn't do it. He would not unite with the Canadian Alliance. He went up and down saying, I won't do it. There will never be a unity but with the Canadian Alliance. They're too right-wing. They're run by a bunch of social conservative rednecks from Alberta and Saskatchewan. Why would I want to unite with those uneducated, inbred, toothless hillybillies out there? I ain't going to do it. He said that. He didn't say those things, but that's exactly what he's implying. I mean, I'm very good at reading what people are implying. And I'm sure that's probably what he was thinking. And it was not very popular with the progressive conservatives to unite. It wasn't popular. And so that's why he said he wouldn't do it. Because the progressive conservatives, people like David Orchard, Joe Clark, who was the former prime minister, Scott Bryson, they didn't want to unite with such a right-wing party. They didn't want to do it. So Peter, who was very popular, said he wouldn't. And what did he do when he became progressive conservative leader? He immediately met with Stephen Harper and united with the Conservative Party of Canada, which was a good move. I'm not saying it wasn't, but my point is we cannot trust Peter MacKay because he has done this before. Now, Peter MacKay is an opportunist. He's an opportunist. He has proven that he is an opportunist. 100%. He is an opportunist. He will do whatever it takes in his mind to get more power, to get elected. That's what he is. He is not, if he feels that to win the conservative leadership, he will advocate against the carbon tax, he'll do it. If he feels that to win in Canada, he will support a carbon tax, which actually would probably make him lose, but he's not all that bright, whatever. He will advocate for the carbon tax immediately after saying he was against it. If he feels that winning the leadership of the Progressive Conservative Party, he has to advocate against merger of the Progressive Conservatives and the Canadian Alliance, he'll advocate for it. If he feels that in order for him to get even a tiny bit of power, to be elected to anything in government, even if it's the head garbage boy, he will advocate for merging with the Canadian Alliance and merging the center-right to become one main Conservative Party of Canada, even after saying he wouldn't do it. So Peter MacKay is a stonk-down opportunist. He will do whatever it takes for him to get power. And I have a feeling that this is what he's doing. I mean, go on his Facebook page right now. He's saying, if I'm Prime Minister, there will be no carbon tax, period. I mean, he's not he doesn't write about why the carbon tax is bad. He doesn't state facts like I would. I say I don't like the carbon tax because it's useless. First of all, it makes things more expensive for people who are in the working class and in the poor class. I mean, people who are rich, it doesn't matter to them. In fact, many of them will probably benefit from it. But it makes things more expensive. It takes away our jobs. And it's worse for the environment because these companies will move to places like China, which don't have carbon taxes, or America, which don't have carbon taxes. And on top of that, have environmental laws which are more lax than Canada, and they'll spew even more carbon into the atmosphere when they move to China or America or Venezuela. So the carbon tax is bad on three fronts. Three fronts. It's bad for the poor and the working class and the middle class because it makes things more expensive. It's bad for job growth, and people will lose their jobs or get laid off or not get a job. And it's bad for the environment. That's why I say I am 100% against carbon tax. Either a tax on gas or a tax for businesses. I'm against both of it. If we're going to have any type of eco tax, it has to be put. First of all, it has to be put on cars that rely on fossil fuels for energy. I would support that. 100%. I would support that. I don't care. I would support that. I would say, look, let's make it more expensive to get a car that relies on fossil fuels, and people will gravitate towards the electric cars. We can say that HOV lanes, electric cars have the ability to use HOV lanes, or they have the ability to drive on the 407, which is a toll road here in the Greater Toronto area, free of charge if they're driving with an electric car. Make it better to drive an electric. That is something I would support. But a carbon tax which taxes businesses or taxes gas, I mean, why would you tax gas? The fact of the matter is, people have to get cars that emit fossil fuels because there's no incentive to do otherwise. So all you're doing is punishing people, poor people, working class people, truck drivers who rely on their cars, and people who live in rural areas. A tax on gas, even this excess tax on gas, doesn't make sense. If I was leader, I would eliminate all excess taxes on gas. Because the fact of the matter is, why are you punishing people who already have a car that burns energy? What you need to do is have a program where people can send in their car, which burns fossil fuel, send it in to be sold for scraps, get money for it, and then they would get an electric car because we would put an eco tax on fossil fuel burned cars. That's what you need to do. Or just say we're not going to accept any car coming into our country that is built to rely on fossil fuel. That is the way to do it. But anyway, that's me being a philosopher. We have to get back to Peter MacKay. Peter MacKay, I don't believe him. I think he is an opportunist. His whole record is opportunism. And the fact of the matter is that little statement he made on social media has me very concerned because it doesn't sound like he's serious about ending the carbon tax. It sounds to me like those few little words, as Prime Minister, there will be no carbon tax. That's just him trying to get people on his side because he knows that conservatives are not on his side right now. He's just trying to get people on his side so that he can win, and then he can immediately backstab them. Somebody who really was passionately against the carbon tax would state that they're against the carbon tax. This is why I'm against the carbon tax. There will be no carbon tax because X, Y, and Z. It's wrong. It's disgusting. It's bad for this, blah, blah, blah. Not a few letters on social media, which are obviously meant to try and con people. I'm very good at reading people, I'm very, very, very good. When I have kids, they're going to go through hell because kids lie, and I'm going to be like, dude, you're lying, you know what? Who you think you're trying to fool? I mean, don't let this young face fool you. I may be young, but I know a lie. I know a con when I see it. And I'm calling Peter MacKay out. Maybe he is genuine, but you know what? His record says otherwise. This is the Arana Nation.